Hang tight. You're live. I'm live. We're live. And Rob said we were live too. So. Sorry about that, guys.
Not that bad.
They say it's not that bad. It's freezing cold. Freezing.
Not bad.
Let's do show.
All right. Let's roll into this week. Here's my camera. All right, you can show up on the screen there. Presentation what?
88.
88. 88. And obviously we've been doing testing. Been cold weather testing here in Charlotte, driving around highways, chassis dyno stuff, engine dyno stuff, just shifters. The list goes on and on. And tonight I thought maybe I'd bring Daniel up here because a lot of people may not understand, some of the process, or I'm sure everybody understands the process, but what it takes to build a manufactured car. Over here on my right is one of our prototype gearboxes. Over on the left, I guess it'd be your left of the screen and right of the screen, opposite of mine. There's two diffs here. And this is a next generation diff that has a little bit tighter front clutch, and it's got some inserts now built in, very similar to what we had with our testing gearbox in the front. But if you were going to go look at building a UTV, like we did in the beginning, you would never be able to get a $30,000 production car using a $12,000 billet front diff. So the front diff this was something as a concept that we developed and tested with. Then we moved over to the cast version that still has all the good differentials and stuff in it. And now it has all the inserts in here. And the shifting mechanism has been modified, and things have been worked, and sensors and torque limiters and so many other things. But Daniel, why don't I know Todd mentioned a while back at Sand Sports we had 289 changes, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So I wanted to come up and talk a little bit about the process of, prototype to production parts and what the differences are and why they end up looking different and the limitations that come along with each. So obviously, like Robby was saying, these full billet pieces look pretty blingy, pretty nice. But really that's just to give us the proof of concept and ability to take the parts that we drew in the computer in CAD and get them 5-axis machine, CNC'd out. And that's a long process for each individual one. That took us quite a while to get all these pieces out.
Well, we still chase them around for some of these parts today.
But
the machinist we did a deal with to do this didn't finish the project, and we had to get pieces made at other places, and we still chase them around for that. But by now, we do have our production parts, which we've had since Sand Sports, and a little bit before Sand Sports, we had some pieces and parts. But since Sand Sports, we've obviously gone in, done more testing, more development. Really not development, more fit and finish, and they're not big changes. But when it comes to mass production, they're big changes because of documentation.
Yeah.
Not one factory makes a gearbox that makes the engine, that makes the transmissions, that makes the axles, makes steering wheels. It's a variety of different manufacturers that help us with this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we can look at and talk a bit about the changes and things like that and what that process looks like. So between the two of these diffs, I'll grab this other camera to get a little close up on it. But
You want to bring my Insta over
Sure.
as well? And I'll try to zoom in similar to where you're at.
yeah, so overall on all the pocketing and webbing and things like that, they look very, very similar. But if we say wanted to change one rib here or there, when we're at this stage of saying, oh, we need a little bit more bolt clearance here, that's just a little CNC operation, and you can make that pocket deeper. But we need to build this one to test out that that bolt can come in and out, because once it's at this stage, and this is a fully cast tool, that's a major change to make revisions to the casting tooling. It's not as simple as just changing one machining operation. And so that's another reason why we need to go through that process of building these shiny prototype parts and then proving out all the functionality of it. And then we can go to the mass production unit.
You know, I had someone ask about the other day, and it's a perfect time to step in and talk about this. But they said, do you have U-joints in your drive shaft? And what we have is we have crown splines. We have shafts that have crown splines in our drive shaft, which allows for misalignment. But if you look here, this amount of spline is that deep. So let's call it roughly 1 3/4 spline. So they have a long spline that has a crown in it. It's actually something that we used back in the NASCAR days on our rear axles. It was an axle that would allow us to put camber in a solid axle rear housing because the spline was crowned. And we still use that technology today that we learned with 1,000 horsepower NASCARs back in the day, rolled right into the drive shafts on the Speed UTV and the crown spline shaft, which allows for misalignment from front to rear. Obviously, we tried to design the car and design the ring and pinion and that front output and the front diff where it's as straight a line as possible. But as we all know, off-road cars have flex.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about, there was, I think, a Dakar team experienced a little bit of trouble with some of their drive shaft stuff this year.
Well, they missed the crown spline. I think they might have got a little bit of information. We are talking about the Red Bull team, but they struggled with very dominant with Seth, Seth, right?
Yeah.
Seth, and he had some very, very good runs, but they had some drive shaft issues where it would actually break the drive shaft because it didn't have enough misalignment when it went into flex.
Yeah, so that's some of the little features on these guys. But as you can see, the production diff is very much a copy of what we CNC'd out. And you can just see here the difference being with the CNC parts. Obviously, they have to be able to release out of the mold. So each surface has actually got a little bit of an angle on it. And then when you go into mate for a bolt head or something like that, you need to come in and machine that perfectly flat. So you don't see these machine marks here on our billet one because the whole face was flat. But otherwise, this arm has a little bit of a taper on each ear. And so it's actually a little bit wider at the base than it is even on our billet ones. So otherwise, you get a little bit more of a bump up in strength. And material spec-wise, very, very comparable. And so we're pretty excited about these, and have not had any structural issues with any of our bulkheads in testing.
No, nothing at all as far as differential drivetrain gear, stuff like that's been bulletproof. It's been really good. But there's a lot of small details. Like you look here, this has got the insert that goes off the pivot point. So even though it's in aluminum, it has steel inserts so that the shoulder of the bolt goes all the way through and does that.
Yep. So what that does is basically, instead of your bolt loading on a 12 millimeter aluminum tab, it's essentially the 12 mil bolt is on a 16 or 18 mil insert that just spreads that load out over a larger surface area and helps that tab survive.
Yeah, someone asking if we're going to go to King of the Hammers with a trophy truck, and that is a negative. We are. I told people that we would stay focused on this car until it gets to final production, and that's exactly what our plan is. I want to show a little detail here. This is all part of these details that we are focusing on, and the reason we're focusing on it is because we want to make sure that when we do deliver that car, which is not far away, all details are there. But if you look here, these are something we use. It's something we developed for a trophy truck, maybe 20 years ago. But this is what we use to hold in our seals in our hubs. Well, people have had these pop out before on other manufacturers. I've had them pop out as well back when we had the Articat Textron days. So we put these simple little, button head screws in here, and that retains the seal. But as you see, when we get our production diffs, and you look at this, they got the detail right, but they missed it. I can get my fingernail back behind here, and there's a gap there. Even though that bolt is tight, it didn't get spot faced, and it didn't get pressed up against the seal. So we got 99% of it and missed that 1%. And this is all the small details that we're going through on this build. It's every little detail from this here to inside the engines to oil pumps to every single small detail you can think about. We're touching and addressing. And we had 285. This is one of those details, but it happened on these 3 bolts. It happened on the 3 bolts on the other side as well.
And it's one of those things where it's not that we forgot about it, because as you can see in our original one, we've got the little spot facing called out in our machining, but obviously somewhere along the lines in the manufacturing programming, they forgot that one operation. And so that's where we need to go back and review all of these physical parts. And it's not super exciting or glamorous, so that's why we haven't shown a ton of all these little details but that's what it takes time to just go through and inspect every item to make sure that it's meeting our original specs.
Well, there's a bunch of other cool features that a lot of people may not realize, but we just don't make this out of aluminum. These actually have time inserts in them. They have aluminum inserts or steel inserts inside aluminum, so that when we do remove the bolts or take them out, this is not just machined in aluminum. These actually have inserts pressed in aluminum. So it's a lot of details. And like I said, if we were to, this car done as a pre-production car would be, $150,000 car. Very similar to what you would have built into a full-blown race car. But we are producing a car that will actually have a same retail price as our competitors, as a Polaris Can-Am. Basically, I believe the new Polaris is actually now more expensive than what we offered up the Speed UTV at. What else we got to talk about tonight, Daniel? Are you going to roll through your slides?
Yeah, I've got a couple slides I'll click through for you, and basically just a couple little updates on things we've been doing lately. So you've seen the car in that video we opened up with, running around with a windshield and a roof rack on. So we put those on, and just based on seeing the equipment in person, Robby had a couple items to give some feedback on. So we actually ended up increasing the height of the top edge of the glass for the windshield and hiding its sealing strip behind the roof lip. So that way there's no reduction in visibility upwards when you have a windshield on compared to just the roof by itself. And that's important for when you're coming up out of a bowl or something like that, when you're looking up at your obstacles. And so that was one thing Robby said we needed to do right away, make a revision, and that one sent back to the supplier, and they're revising the tooling on that. Similar with the roof rack, we were pretty excited about the look of it, and we were just playing around with some different ideas for the front valence there. Obviously, we've got this formed aluminum piece in the CAD model here, and then on the real car, you see we've got a light bar mounted up there because we saw that space, and Rob was like, "Hey, what about putting a light bar up there?"
As we're moving through the details and waiting for suppliers to to bring us back approved production parts, we're working on accessories as well. So it's not just the car. We're not just sitting here waiting around for someone to bring us back a light bar or a front diff. We go right to the next project and take on that as well, which is accessories. And so now we've actually designed another new light that will fit right into the roof rack. And do you have a picture of that? Actually, I can
I've
show
got
that over here
there you
on
go,
your
back to
screen
this
over
one
here. Basically, we just went back and we integrated the real light bar right into that. And this is something that happened just a few weeks ago. So it's we went from there you go, back and forth. Went from aluminum plate there, which if you didn't want a light bar, that's something you could obviously do, or you can go to the light bar that really fits in there and flows in nice, and gives a much better fit and finish. So just small details that are still coming. And like I said, there's a team of guys working on accessories. There's Daniel's going through the checklist of all the production parts, and we run cars daily. So we're down to we have four big things on our list that are all nothing to do with really the final details of it, but we got 4 items that we need to make sure are 100% functional, and that's our goal for the end of this month, is to click those boxes and rock on, and make sure that our suppliers have followed through with all the other details. Daniel, what are you showing here?
So basically just following up on that point you just made there of going through the whole system. So we've got another round of revisions from all of our suppliers.
Perfect.
And we're just
air filter.
and we're just cross-referencing that with everything that we've either discovered through testing or just inspection on these pre-production vehicles in the last few months, and now go down system by system to make sure that every change has been implemented correctly. So like we said on the air filtration, we wanted to add a couple more ribs and change the tolerance on the mounting, so it's got a little bit firmer mount on the filter. Motor, drivetrain, packaging, brackets, tabs, just the whole assembly in and out of the car. We've made a couple of revisions to plumbing and routing, things like that. You've seen us, you may have noticed on some of the cars we've been running, because we first implement the change on the cars we've got here, and then communicate back and forth with suppliers either through data or through sending prototype parts that we machine in-house. And that's one of the nicest things of that we've got the capability in-house to do all of these little prototype fittings and any little miscellaneous piece that's a custom one-off that would take some of the bigger OEMs a while to outsource to some job shop to do 1 or 2 of these items to test out. We've got a phenomenal machinist, Jesse, who can just take any idea and run with it, and by the end of the day you've got that prototype part. And fuel system testing and cooling systems, big one. We've got a lot of hoses all over this car, and just working on it each time. We come up with a little bit better way maybe to route this here or route this there, and I think we've got
obviously roll into next generation cars as well. It's stuff that we would love to do right now, and we're trying to get as much of it done as possible, but there's some things that'll just roll into later model year cars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly a point where we have to call it that this achieves all the functions outlined, and move on to the next one.
Someone just asked about the robot weld, and yes, we are done with chassis. As far as chassis, tubes, thermo-drilled holes, every revision that After Sand Sports has done with chassis, and we have showed some robot stuff lately, and the welds are getting much better, to the point where we're approved on chassis. So chassis has basically set sail, and we're into the very, very small details now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just pretty cool when you look at the power steering lines, how they run down through the whole car. There is hard lines down the center. A lot of people don't know this, but if you run too much soft line, you'll get too much panting of the line, and you'll actually feel that a bit in the steering wheel. So that was part of our solution with Steering Shake earlier. We're going to some hard lines, some supports on the steering rack, double shear on the top and bottom of the steering rack. And that was a big challenge because we were already off, set sail with the way the front bulkhead and diff and chassis was. We had to make our steering rack work, and we got it done. So hats off to everybody on this team. A lot of people, a lot of power steering experts, from Jeff Howe to Charlie to Roy to everybody, Matt. Everybody has put in a whole bunch of effort. Casey has changed part after part after part, but we've got this thing now where you remember the old steering wheels used to have holes in it. I'm confident enough I could put my pinky in the one hole and it wouldn't break my pinky. So that was a challenge that has been resolved, and I feel really, really good about it. I'm really strong with where we're at there, and I think we got a bulletproof part built. Yeah,
that was a really cool one because it wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of probably 3 items working together that we solved them all, and
had to scratch our brains a little
got
bit.
It going.
It was a lot of late nights working through the function of the power steering system. So that was everybody had even Alan over at Tap Clutch. He had ideas. We tried so many different parts, and at our last test, go back about a month ago in the desert. We've been driving every day here on the pavement. It doesn't even matter if we drive forwards and backwards in the shop. We are working on shifting and how it shifts going from forward, how it goes backwards. Doing a tilt test on all the fluids. We got a bunch of stuff going on, and things are good. So we're here. I read. I didn't run off to Mexico with your money. No, I got to be honest. Everybody's deposits definitely allowed us to get to the position where we could build a car like this. But the R&D, testing, development, tooling that we're at, deposits didn't pay for that, guys. I think we showed this last week, just another show of how many feet of wire. I guess it's 2 different pictures, but it's
24 foot long.
24 feet long of wires, pigtailed, and this was, I believe it was shown last week, and it's still on the bench a week later. And there's all kinds of little fit and finish pieces that we're working on to make everybody's life easier when this car is done. There's nothing worse than popping up the hood on your vehicle and seeing a complete rat's nest of wires. And that goes from the production wiring harness to the dash to the BCM to the ECU to the engine harness. We've really focused on building a tidy package, and we will have some really nice Raycam stuff for aftermarket later on. But right now, our full focus is production and making a car that is reliable, reasonably priced, so that you guys can go out there and have a lot of fun with it. So I know there's tons of questions, and I'm reading through some of them as I'm standing behind the screen here. And I do feel good with where we're at, and I believe that we got very, very good stuff coming on the horizon. I've seen